We will officially open the Community Committee meeting the 25th of March. A very warm welcome to committee members and to members of the gallery. Thank you very much, and contributors today, staff. Looking forward to your contributions today too. I think we'll be able to have a cracking meeting today. Feeling very, very good about this one. Now, do we have the multicultural opening today or the multi-faith? Okay, we will, strangely enough, have the opening slightly after. Oh, good morning. Good morning. Okay, yes, we'll hand it over to you. Kia ora.
We'll start off this to join in and say it in your own language. I'll say it in Tongan. Okay, let us pray. Mātamai te rani, ke tapu haho puapa, ke hoko mai ho pule, ke whawhina ngalo, hange ko I rani, pe whakmamani. Ke whakmahana mea kai kia nei, pe whakmoemoe mangai ngā hala, o hange ko mā whakmoemoe aki nā tō kua pewa mai, pe o whakahoke mātou ki ai ahi, whakatau me whiri, e ko ai pule, mō mālohi, mō kloria, a tai ngata, pe tai ngata, amen.
Kia ora, thank you very much. All right, so we've got an interesting pair of meetings today. So first of all, we'll move on to Ursula Thompson for potential early departure at 11:30. Is that right, Sarah? Sarah's on Zoom there. Yep. We have apologies from Mayor Southgate for various guest appearances today. I think she's got a pretty busy schedule, so Paula, your apologies are noted.
Chair, I'm here at the moment, though.
That's great. Oh, good. Welcome. I just can't see your smiling face on Zoom, so welcome to the Zoomers.
No.
Okay, we're all waiting. We're with anticipation. Councillor Forsyth for partial attendance. Councillors Gallagher, you're here. Are you maybe leaving early?
No, I was stuck in traffic.
Oh, well, welcome. Glad you made it. We'll take your apology off. You took the bus? Fantastic. Do we have any other apologies? Councillor Bassett.
Departure,
11:50, all right. I will let you know we're trying to run the meeting until about 12 today, so that may be moot. Thank you, Councillor Rob. Councillor Ryan? Something like what he said. Can you please note, Councillor Ryan, as something what Rob said? Any other apologies? Councillor Trains over there? No? Okay, very good indeed. Okay, well, I'll move that those apologies be accepted. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Ewan. Confirmation of agenda. So it's going to work like this. We have the PM in town. Many people have expressed that they would like to get to this train launch, which is a significant event. So we've agreed to split the community meeting in two. The first part of today will run till midday. The second part will be on Monday. Now, we've kind of made it a little bit neater and tidier in that we hope that all that will be left to do on Monday is the PX material. So with that in mind, we have scheduled speakers and staff around that Monday for the PX. So in the likely event that we actually finish all the stuff in the white earlier, we will adjourn the meeting at the end of that or at midday, whichever comes first. Now, if we don't finish that, we'll have to finish that on Monday, our second day, which we have apologies from Councillors Ewan and McPherson for that day anyway. All right. I also reserve the right to move a couple of these things around if it's more convenient for members of the public gallery. But otherwise, I would like to move that the agenda in its present sense be moved. Māngai te pōra. Kia ora, thank you very much. And all those in favour, say aye. Aye. Against? Carried unanimously. Look at that. Okay. Do we have any declarations of interest today? No one's interested in anything? Okay, great. All right. I will actually declare that we will not be making anything out of Lego today. The temptation was to make trains, but we won't be doing that. Yeah, as long as you document how long it takes you and the hours spent. All right, thank you. And we've got a really good full house today in the public gallery. It's lovely to see you all here. In fact, we saw a lot of you here yesterday, so you might as well have just stayed the night in the foyer, really. But welcome back. It's nice to see you back in the house. So first of all, we have Joe and I think Wayne together from Te Papanui Enderley Trust speaking to item number 7. So if you'd be so kind as to come up here. We are, because we're running at a pretty tight schedule, going to try and keep you to 5 minutes, if that gives you enough time. That will include questions from the floor, so you don't have to fill up that time. So kia ora. Clock's going to be up here soon. There we go. Oh, did I say 3? Did I say 5? You said 5. Did say 5, didn't I? Thank you.
Well, that's happening. Mauri ore te whare, mihi ana kia koutou katoa. O te rā ki a koe te tuahine, nau I tūwhera I tō tātou nei hui I te atana, I runga I te tika, I te pono tēnā koe. O te rā ki a koutou katoa, ngā paupau o te haupuri nei, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Te tuahine e te pora e mihi ana ki a koe anō hoki. Ko Waikato, ko Ngāpuhi, ko Ngārauru, ngā iwi, ko Wainemako tōku ingoa, he kaimahia hau ki Te Papanui Enderley Community Trust. My name is Wayne and I'm one of the staff over at Te Papanui Enderley Community Trust. It's an honour and a privilege to be here to represent our community, and just good morning to everyone.
Kia ora whanau, Joe Kuti is my name. I have the awesome job of being the manager of Te Papanui Enderley Community Centre. Love my whānau, love my community, my centre and the people around me. It's been awesome to be a part of Te Papanui Enderley Community Centre and the community. Brought up in the area and stuff as well. I live 400 metres from the community centre, so I'm really in touch with our community. Yeah, awesome community to be involved with, but also to be there to support them, to listen to what they have to say. It is true though, the struggle is real. Where we are, it is real. But the thing I like about our community is the people are real too. If you get in amongst all that and that struggle, the awesome people to be amongst. Love our community and our whānaus around there and stuff like that. It's awesome to have them. But also too, myself having the opportunity to be in the position that I'm in. And getting the support and the trust from our community. It's real easy to go out there and do stuff with the support of any community, and with Enderley, Te Papanui, it's awesome to have them on board with us. We run a few awesome programs down there. Building Our Future Community Leaders is an awesome program that we run. It's mainly our tamariki 5s to 12s. We get 60 to 70 kids down doing activities, but you can see that they're there because it's a safe environment. It's an environment that they've got someone there that's going to listen to them and support them. And with the trust, that's what we do with our tamariki. Also, we run an awesome rangatahi program down there as well. Today's community future leaders, and basically they're independent, you know, they self-lead the program, so we're basically there to support them in whatever they want to do, activities and stuff. Awesome bunch of teenagers, you know, that's 13 to 19 year olds, a hard block to deal with, to interact with, but hey, we're in there doing what we do, and we're getting a good 20 to 30 kids down there and stuff from our area. It's awesome to have them involved. Another big thing we've been doing down there, and everyone knows about our events, awesome events we've been having down there, but the one that stood out for myself was our first one coming out of COVID and partnering up with the council. Awesome to have the council on board, but also too, the community seeing the council working alongside our trust and you know, building that relationship with our trust and the council, because in the past it hasn't been as tight in Te Papanui Enderley, but seeing that, but also continuing on that journey where all the other events and stuff like that, the council's been alongside us. It's been awesome to have them alongside us in our community, down at our big grey ugly looking centre, but hey, it's, you know, it's awesome to have them down there and being part of our whānau.
It's pretty phenomenal, the reach that we've got at the moment with our community, and Joe mentioned some of the events. We've been getting hundreds of whānau from our community, partnering with the community team here at Council to be able to give engagement back he Pau Manawa Ora. But at these events, they've shared their aspirations with us, and I would refer you to the submission given yesterday by our Chair, Ira Paihope, and Deputy Chair Vicky about all the aspirations that they have. But just a few that we want to highlight today. One, and we ask for help with this, is our community want a safer community, and there are key infrastructure projects that you can help us with to be able to achieve that. Secondly, we have been asked to have a playground and a new whare that's fit for purpose. That's about a cultural whare and a cultural playground. Cultural in design, cultural in form, cultural in shape, cultural in colour, not just a building that's been painted over. And one of the other ones is they are wanting to be more connected as a community to raise the community spirit, which I think we have an amazing opportunity to do so. It is hard out there. They have shared the hardships in the community. We have whānau coming in crying because they do not have any kai on their tables, and I just am blown away by that we live in this beautiful country and this beautiful city, and there are still people like this experiencing hardship. So, yeah, it's pretty hard out there.
We're committed to caring for our community. We're committed to be there supporting our community, listening to our community, and also being their voice. But we can't do it by ourselves. Right. You know, it's a big job. I mean, there's only myself and Wayne. Yeah, there's only myself and Wayne, and but we need help. We need help now. That's why I ask you fellas, the council, help us.
Thank you, Joe. Kia ora, Wayne. Time for a couple of quick questions. Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks, Chair, and kia ora. Thanks for your presentation, guys. You mentioned a couple of key infrastructure projects that you need support with, and I know your Chair identified a couple of things yesterday in their report on Te Pau Manawa. What would you say are the top three things that are vital in terms of infrastructure?
We see kids running across the roads when school's finished, and they're in cars, and especially down where the Hamilton Settlement Trust is as well. And then especially kids coming from Insel Primary School to the centre. I know Linda, the principal there, is quite keen on getting pedestrian crossings with lights, speed bumps. 50 speed bumps to start off with would be great, and then more lights in the community, more lights around the centre, and security cameras as well. There's just to name a few.
Thank you, that's really helpful.
Thank you, Ryan. Manga Ollie.
Thanks, Chair Mark. Tēnā kōrero mea atu kia kōrero mō na whakaaro nā kōrero ko puta mai tēnei ata. Are there any any central government agencies supporting you at the moment?
Yep, there's MSD, they're in there supporting us.
What does that support look like on the ground?
Financial support. They've actually given us the opportunity to have a community connector role, which comes with a discretionary fund that we were able to provide wraparound services for whānau who are in need. Also, Koinga Ora, they've invested in our whare. They also, we've asked for the lease for the front of the centre for our community garden and a welcoming space. That's currently in development, so we'll hopefully hear back with them about that, and that space is going to transform our whole community, because as you come around the corner and you see this elephant in the park, we call it, we want the whānau to see this amazing community space, gardens, picnic tables. There's no picnic tables in all of our whole community. Wow. And I think that's so interesting that there's no picnic tables. So we will lead that change and we'll find the funds to do that, but it's the other support that we've requested for help that would be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also,
so
yourselves as council, Koinga Ora, and we just recently had the Minister for Local Government in our whare as well to talk to her about some key projects.
Thank you. Great. Councillor Dave.
Lovely to hear you guys here today, and also yesterday, as you pointed out, that was terrific too, as a former resident of the area and a pupil of Te Awarima before Te Awarima. it's great to see you here, but what I want to just focus on a little bit was what, in my question, you talked to Ryan about the crossing that the Insol Ave school principal wanted. The point was made yesterday that there's not much sort of infrastructure provided in some of the lower decile areas, to probably a much better term than that, I'm not sure, but there's not so much noise coming from those communities to bureaucracies like council as there is from some of the higher decile areas like North Tuna. So I'm wondering if you've got any ideas on how to sort of, apart from appearing today, but elevating the presence of communities like Te Papanui in front of organisations like ours, so we can get a better deal for those communities.
I think that with the opportunity of the long-term plan coming up and submissions coming through, we will work with our 60+ stakeholders and families to be able to submit and put forward a really good investment strategy for you to deliver. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I think we'll cut that short. There's an item coming up on this very soon, so we'd invite you to stay for that. Thanks, Dave. Kia ora, and once an Eastie, always an Eastie, Dave. Knew there was pedigree in there. Thank you, gentlemen. Kia kite.
Tēnā koutou.
Really appreciate your great work in the community. Thank you. Neil Tolan, speaking of great work in the community, speaking to the same item. Neil, you're going to have 5 minutes. Councillors and Māngai will ask that we bear the time in mind. It's not to diminish the importance of this at all. You never know what's going to happen when Neil turns up, do you? So Neil, you'll have 5 minutes from when they set the timer, but just start. Yes. Go for it.
Thank you, everyone. I'm Neil Tolan, manager at the West End Community Centre, and I'll get these fellas to introduce themselves.
Kia ora, my name's Rada.
Kia ora, my name's Rizza.
And Rizza's really famous on TikTok. Okay, good morning, wonderful people, TikTok. And I acknowledge all our community centres out there as well. Since 1979, the West End Community Centre has worked hard to support, celebrate, resource and strengthen the neighbourhoods of the Hamilton West area. Over those decades, tens of thousands of people of all ages have walked through the centre doors and accessed the wide range of support services, events, programs, activities and resources that have been provided. Tremendous gains have been made, and the centre is seen as a key contributing factor to the safer, vibrant and strong community spirit that is clearly evident. We still have our issues, but there is a lot of pride there. The centre has enabled the community to proactively work together and implement many local solutions that have dealt with the local issues and challenges that the community has come up against. The community centre has a strong pride and ownership of the West End Community Centre, and it has become a very important piece of social infrastructure for them. The Hamilton City Council has partnered with the centre since the very, very beginning, back in 1979, 1980, providing advice, guidance, financial support through a service level agreement, and for well over 20 years, we had a youth and neighbourhood advisor worker based on the site. Hamilton City Council has and continues to play a key role in the success and positive outcomes. Each year we have 160 groups that we make use of the facility, about 1,800 bookings. We work on 4 key community events with a lot of partners in our community. Hundreds of people receive Coevolution food, so a big thank you to Go Eco through every day. And just hundreds of people come through the doors. We've planted 350 fruit trees, homes with fruit trees, and we've snuck in, I think, 130 fruit trees into Elliott Park. Sorry if that has increased over the years. I guess on behalf of the thousands of people who make use of the facility and the services each month, we thank and ask Hamilton City Council to continue to support this valued community resource at, I guess, the current level we've been receiving, and we appreciate that. Thank you very much. I did bring these chaps in today, and I guess I just want to say a few words of thanks to the council for the recent exciting things that have happened in our community. Jump on the mic.
I just want to say thank you for everything that you've done for our community. We've been waiting for a new skate park for a long, long time, and just want to say thank you.
Te tuko te bau. We've the parks have been attracting heaps of people around the community. So like, not only that you improve the park, you guys improve the community as well. So yeah, on behalf of me, the Beau, Neil, Tom, and our whole community, we just show our appreciation.
Awesome. Kia ora. Thank you, guys. And there's a question from Councillor Gallagher. I just want to say thank you for being the community and doing what you're doing. You're making, now it's remarkable, and it's a great model. And I see Joe behind you nodding his head, going, "Yep, we're going to be them," and really excited about that. Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, and I, as would protocol demand, I acknowledge the life membership of Councillor McPherson of the Western Community Centre. But we've got an item coming up later on around library provisions, and there's an aspect in our LTP where we're being asked to look at the Hillcrest Library. But I'm crystally aware that both Enley, Norton, Rotokawa area are the areas that are not served by a library service. And I'm just wondering if you have any views as to the potential for council to work with the Western Community Centre, whether it's a mobile library information or whatever. Because it seems to me that, on a building block basis, there's so much more to do.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a great addition. We actually love when the library come out to our community centre and run their lab series. People love it. It's in their neighbourhood. A library would be great, or a big mobile bus that turns up to our car park and gives out books, which I remember way back in the day, that bus at Norton Mall car park. Yeah, we'd definitely support anything that gets people reading. And back in the day, the parents used to say to the kids, "Get your head out of that book." But now it's get your head out of the iPad. So books, fantastic. And any other resources that library provide, we love that.
I look forward to an LTP submission as well.
Hear that, guys?
All right. We've got two items that I think will be of interest to you, Councillor Gallagher, coming up shortly. Thank you. If there's no more questions, nothing on Zoom?
Councillor Thompson.
Councillor Thompson. There we go. See.
Martin just prompted me to have one question. Thanks for your presentation. Hello, Neil. And I was just in regard to the libraries. The closest one, I presume, is St Andrews, and that, in terms of accessibility, do people in the community in Norton and the surrounding areas, do they access St Andrews, or is it accessible to them?
So there is one in Dinsdale?
In Dinsdale?
Yeah.
Yeah. And is that, those two libraries, are they seen accessible, or are they kind of too far to be...
I think that, they probably do service that community. I guess it's, if you had one more locally or a little offshoot of it would be, I guess, more easily accessible for people.
Yeah. Okay, I think
transport.
Got a couple of good answers on that one. Okay. Thank you, Sarah.
No, that's fine.
Kia ora. Thank you, gents, for coming in, and keep up the great work. Good to see you. We'd like to welcome Jane Wood from Puketi Neighbourhood House. Hello, Jane. Where are you, Jane? There we go. Warm welcome. She's brought her groceries.
Good
Jane?
things come in brown paper bags.
I reckon. Did anyone else think food for a second there? No, just me. Okay.
Oh, you've heard about our Friday night dinners then?
I have, and Scone Wednesdays. Okay, Jane, as
Right.
above,
I won't be
you know
long.
the drill.
Good morning, and thank you very much for the opportunity to enlighten you as to what's happening in the north of Hamilton. Last week we hosted an information session on the long-term plan. The meeting was well attended, there was healthy debate, and the passion for the people was evident from the discussions. Sadly, I wasn't there as I had an appointment with a couple of big boats in Auckland. In the last year, food provision has increased from 7 parcels, this is Food Bank, in 2019 to 200 in 2020, and as of yesterday, we are sitting at 116 for 2021. We have been lucky enough to receive lottery funding for a van, which will enable us to accept more clients. Our free store is going great with guns, with up to 40 to 50 people lining up every day. We have also gained a partnership with the Ministry of Education to provide up to 400 school lunches daily and we are looking forward to the new challenges that this will bring next term. The follow-up on the emergency housing holiday program that we delivered in January is we have been approached by the Ministry of Social Development again to provide a program in April. We are currently working through the logistics, so hopefully this will come to fruition. So that's me for now. I have left a bag of pears and apples harvested from our orchard for you all to try. Some of you, they might look a bit manky on the outside, but they're freshly grown. So.
I just need to check with governance. We're getting scrutinised very closely. Will we need to put this on a gift register? It's underneath the limit. Just checking in the environment that we're in at the moment.
I also do have a memorandum of understanding to grow these with you, so, you know, it should be fine.
Would anyone mind if we share them with the gallery first and then talk to them? Would you mind sharing them around behind you first?
No, not at all.
Great.
Yeah, and also I'll just leave our latest newsletter. I know my inbox gets really full, and sometimes it's better if I've got something printed in front of me, so I'll just put them over there.
Jane, thank you. Before you go, hopefully, there may be some questions from the team, but could you elaborate a little bit on the school lunches development? You hinted at it quickly there.
So this is Scott's baby, but he's in Auckland today.
Yep.
So we applied to deliver school lunches. We put our limit at 400 lunches per day. So we will be starting at 5 o'clock in the morning. So we've got the contract with the Ministry of Education to deliver. So you will have seen probably lunches already on different community houses who are getting the extra ones. So we will be starting at 5 in the morning and going through and then delivering out to the school. So it's quite a big mission, but it's a challenge that we want to do. We can see that there's an opportunity for us, so yeah.
Busy.
Yeah, busy.
Look, and with indulgence to the committee, just one more question. We've heard from 3 now community houses, all at different stages of their evolution and what they're doing. Where would it be best that we injected some help to you at this point?
At this point, we're very appreciative of our 3-year grant. At this point, we really need support with a purpose-built facility. I've got one light out, and I'm not going to get a scissor lift in to fix that one light. Right. In the winter months, it's going to get a bit darker. Okay. So we're sitting on top of each other. We've got little or no storage. The building is not really fit for purpose. We've got a little meeting room, which you sat in the other day, Mark, and there's no ceiling on it. There's no privacy, which is very, very difficult.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yes, so we've got a clear idea. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions for members? Jane, thank you for coming in. Nothing on Zoom? Nope. Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Jane.
Cheers. Thank you.
And the last, I believe, of our public forum. Kia ora and welcome to Suzanne Rouse from Te Rongopai, speaking to the same item. Kia ora. You've heard the drill there. 5 minutes, go for it.
Okay. Tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora, my name's Suzanne Rouse. I'm the manager at the Good News Community Centre. So greetings on behalf of Te Rongopai Community Trust, elected members, committee members and Hamilton City Council staff. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Council for their funding contribution to our community centre and acknowledge the difference that it does make to our community. So the Good News Community Centre you'll see pop up shortly. We're based in Norton on Breckens Ave. We were established in 2014. The centre has a great hall suitable for sports and large gatherings. We've got a commercial kitchen. We've got a lounge and counselling room as well. So the centre offers a variety of programs to the community. So I'd just like to touch on a few of those off the list. One of those is our Youth Street mentoring. Just slide 3, thanks. We acknowledged a couple of years ago that our young people weren't transitioning well from school to the next stage of life. So we have a one-on-one mentoring program that supports the young people until they are in study or employment for 1 year or hit 21. So that's going really well. Also, like the other community centres, our free store, thanks to Kaivolution, is a great asset and feeds over 60 households a day. So we're really grateful for that partnership. So we take a proactive response to supporting and building up our community. But above all, we're a place where people stop by if they're in need or want help in some way. An example that comes to mind recently is a migrant came in and I said, I haven't seen you for a few weeks. And she said, no, I got a new job. And I said, oh, that's so great. But she said, I haven't been paid. And I said, well, you know, did you have an employment agreement in place? No. And then she told me the rate that she'd been offered, and it was well below minimum wage. And so, it's really great that we can then connect these people to the suitable support that they require. We've got a few events. So Easter in the Park, that's this Sunday, 3 o'clock at the Dominion Road Park. You're all welcome to attend. It's a carnival family type atmosphere and a really great opportunity to bring the community together. In Norton, we've had huge outcry about crime and feeling unsafe, and so Dr. Sharma's offered to facilitate a public meeting. We've got the police involved as well, and that's happening at the centre on Monday night, 5:30. So you're welcome to come along to that, because people in our community are currently feeling very vulnerable and unsafe about what's happening. One of our new programs is the Youth Employability Program. So this is about supporting young people being ready for the workforce. So we're going to be beginning this in July. The plans are in place for it. It was developed by Comet, which is an offshoot from Auckland Council, but it's run various places around New Zealand, but we'll be the first to offer it in Hamilton. And this program, next slide, they can work towards a certificate. So that at the completion of the 20 hours skills workshops, 8 hours community service and 80 hours work experience, they can get their excellence level. So this is just about helping support our young people. There's not the part-time jobs, after-school type jobs around that there once was. And some students are benefiting from the likes of Gateway and schools, but there's a huge lot who aren't getting any experience and they're leaving school not ready for the workforce. So we're hoping to change that and make a difference in our community. We do have one of the highest unemployment rates in the city, and so we're determined to change that. So that's some of the skills that will be covered in terms of the program, and then the next one looks at some of the other work readiness questions. Just flicking over, you'll see our facilities used by a variety of other organisations on a weekly basis. So I'll cut short, so you can just go to the last slide. In terms of questions.
Very good indeed. There being no questions, all I can say is wow. Thank you for. I think that's probably echoed by the looks of people's faces, going, "Holy moly, you're going hard." So thank you for what you're doing. Are there any questions or comments from the floor or Zoom? No. Thank you for preparing and. Oh, sure, Councillor Gallagher.
Can you confirm that your community is extremely grateful for the excellent service you provide?
Yep, you can turn up and you can see that people are very grateful for what we can offer.
Thank you.
Always asking the hard questions. One more from Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks. Thanks for your your presentation today. I do want to know, is there an ask you have of council, or is there one already in play, or other than updating us today, is there anything we can do to support you more, or is it an affirmation that we're already on the right track, or?
Yeah, our biggest limitation is our financial resource. We could do more if we had the funding available. Our costs since we started receiving the multi-year grant in 2015 have over doubled as we've grown as an organisation, but the multi-year funding has had only a small increase, so it doesn't. The funding in terms of the contribution to our programs has decreased as we've grown as an organisation.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Okay, thank you very much. Lovely to have you here, Suzanne.
Thank
Kia ora,
you.
and thank you to all our contributors today. You started the meeting in great heart for us. Thank you. We will be moving on to your item after a couple of quick items, so you're welcome to stay. Next item, team, is item 5, the confirmation of the community minutes. I'm happy to move this, that they be received. Seconded, Councillor Kesh. Just beat you to it, that one, Ewan. Any questions or discussion on the previous minutes? All right, we'll go to the vote on that one. Show of hands, please, team. Dave, for you and all that the minutes be received? Yeah. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Zoomers.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Wonderful. Reasonably brief. Any questions arising? Councillor Gallagher.
GM report or your report, just to Andy Mannering, the Richmond Park School site, what is the update there in terms of that particular development and the players?
Actually, if you don't mind, Martin, we will wait for the Chair's report.
GM report?
Beg your pardon, the GM's report.
Yeah, that's fine. That's
great.
Fine.
But while we've got your attention, I will ask you to give us a wrap-up, if you can, of yesterday's incredibly big day. The Hei Pomanawa in particular.
Well, one is extremely grateful for the excellent discipline of the EMs in Mangomare in terms of the questioning, but it was a long day and we got through it, and it was a very humbling day, particularly with some of the younger contributions, and one would be heartless if one wasn't influenced and moved by some of the presentations from our younger youth, and one was looking hopefully at some of the future leaders of our city in various ways. You always feel that someone might be really nervous to come and give a presentation, but eventually that nervousness will go, and of course you can just see the great potential. As we're aware that there's, we've got, it comes back to this committee in May, elected member session and other sessions, and start of a very significant journey. I would also make the observation is that it just reminds you not necessarily to listen to the loudest voices, including those who might write to you from various political parties and etc. Listen to the people. Listen, make sure that we do that incredible outreach into our diverse community, and just what we've just witnessed just now with the presentations. So all I'm saying is, I'm just saying, anyway, that's enough for me, and
thank you.
And just reminding people, if you haven't responded to Starfest, do send your emails through of any other questions and stuff you want.
Great, and thanks for your chairing yesterday. That was a tough one, and we expect that these sort of discussions are going to be tough, and that's what we welcome. That's what we want. There was tough stuff to listen to, tough stuff to say, but that's what we're here to do.
I was very ably supported by my deputy chair in terms of his very helpful advice through the day, so I acknowledge that.
Of course. And speaking of very able chairs, I do need to stand corrected in my chair's report. Councillor Kesh, I've got a couple of words wrong in here regards to the welcoming communities. Can you just bring me up to speed on that?
It was just the name is welcoming communities.
As opposed to welcoming families.
And so we're not yet accredited, but we've been accepted into the program to work towards accreditation.
Got it. Thank you. Thanks for pulling me up on that. Councillor, I beg your pardon. We'll go in the order I've got here: Mangai, Thompson, Evans, and then Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair. It was just a quick note exactly on that for the record to also congratulate and acknowledge the mahi of Councillor Deputy Chair Kesh for her mahi in bringing together the Welcoming Communities project. One of the guiding principles of Kingitanga is manaaki, and the sense that we get from this project is that we will too be able to be a part of that and manaaki our communities as well. So I wanted to offer our thanks as a iwi, and just thank you for doing what you do, having babies and leading communities all at the same time. Ned Cape.
Thank you. That's a really positive contribution. Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, I was just going to talk of what Mangai Tapora said, but she said it better than I would. But I did just have a question through you, Chair, on the external funding that comes with the Welcoming Communities. What does that look like, and what does that go towards sort of specifically?
Can I hand that over to the... Here we go. Welcome, Andy.
So the external funding that comes from the Immigration New Zealand is 50,000 for the next 3 years, and 100
per year, or?
50 per year. So 50 for the next 3 months, 50 for the following year, 50 for the following year. We're able to roll that money until we've spent it on significant projects that are going to fall out of our local welcoming plan. So what it will be spent on isn't set in stone yet, but the money allows us to pull together an external governance group. Allows us to develop a local plan that will have actions for us moving towards a more welcoming community, and then for actual specific projects. So there's scope that things may be enhanced that are currently in play, or there may be new projects that come to the table from the community that we're able to resource.
Thanks. And does that include potential infrastructure like was mentioned earlier, or those sorts of things, or is it more social? Or?
There's scope for us to negotiate what that looks like. Essentially, a lot of councils who have joined the program have needed to use that money to recruit somebody and to hire somebody, but through the work that our team is already doing, we don't have to do that employment cost, so that our 150 gets to go towards projects.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we've had a good long extensive discussion on it, but I would welcome you to contact Andy direct as well. I see where your head's going and I like it. It's great. All right, no more questions, nothing on Zoom? No, great. All right, well, I've moved that the Chair's report be received. Do I have a second? Ollie? Mangai Ollie? You all right? Any debate, comments? No, and that being the case, we'll go to the vote that the Chair's report be accepted. Show of hands, please, on Zoom as well. Yeah, I'll take that nose blowing as a show of hands there, Margaret. Fantastic. All right.
Mine's a show of hands too, sorry, Mr. Chair.
All right, yes, you're in a dark room wearing black clothes with black gloves, so it was a bit hard to see there, but got it. Okay, well, thank you, Paula.
Just about on the so thank you, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Paula. You want to call it?
The motion is carried unanimously.
Great. While you're there, Andy, we'll move on to item 7, which is the community and social development outcomes. Now, I hate saying that I'll take the report as read, so Andy, I will get you to speak to it briefly.
Kia ora, Chair, Councillors, Mangai Māori. Just really briefly want to acknowledge the great work that our network of community houses do across the city in supporting the vision and goals of council. If we think about a city that's easy to live in, if we think about a city where all of our people thrive, the local community houses and collectively create great opportunities for people to connect with immediate services that they might need, but beyond that, in terms of celebrating the pride and the belonging that comes from being a part of a community. So our report really is to acknowledge that council invests through our multi-year grant resources to partner with the houses, but actually the houses are delivering a lot of outcomes that support our direction of travel, and so wanted to bring that awareness to councillors. Happy to answer any questions.
Got it, Andy. Yep, they're lining up. Councillor Wilson, you first up.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Mark. Andy, thank you for the report. Just one brief question. In our current draft LTP, can you help me to understand what, if any, renewals or maintenance funds have been set aside for redevelopment or repair or maintaining these wonderful community houses?
Thanks, Councillor Ewan. So in our renewals, there's 11.7 million over the 10 years. And specifically, some of the people who spoke today, the facilities that they talked about, Endley, there's 1.1 million in year 3. Obviously, if you've been to Endley in recent times, it's pretty tired, and I was out there the other week with Joe and Wayne having a look around, and some of our other facilities. Fairfield, there's 1.2 million in year 1, and there was a fire there, so there's some insurance money that's coming in for that as well. And then what Jane was talking about with the opportunity for a purpose-built facility at Puketi Neighbourhood House, probably next to the Te Rapa Sports Dome, well, that's to be discussed. We've got $1.5 million in the draft 10-year plan, which was discussed by elected members, for council's contribution to a facility, and obviously looking for Jane and the team and others to partner in that too. So we've still got to have a lot of dialogue on that.
One final follow-up, if I could. I've been out to Enderley a couple of times recently and am overwhelmed by the amount of work that goes in there, but terribly disappointed with the quality of the building, etc. I've noted year 3. Is there any chance why year 3 in the priority? Can we bring it forward, or was that made as part of a broader strategic spending decision? Just help me understand why we put it to year 3.
Just really our program, and actually working through with the trust and others about what we want to do there long term, because there might be a vision to do have a facility that's a little bit different to what's there, just the shell that we've got there now, so to allow that time. But we do have flexibility in our renewals and capital program, as Paul Gower talks about, through asset management. So there is ability to actually exchange things out. It just means that some other facilities might have to wait a little bit longer if we move things around. So we do have the ability to do that, and I think we've over the last wee while have also looked at the other things that Joe talked about, as just simple things like goalposts on the football fields there. So Maria's team are having a look at that. The playground, really good suggestion about having a cultural playground rather than sort of the sort of corrections department looking one that we've got there at the moment. It's even if it had a bit of colour, it would be better than what it looks like now. But it's functional. But I think we want to add to that and add to the vibrancy as well as we go forward, as we've done in other areas.
Great, good questions. Thank you, Councillor Ewan. Māngai Te Pora.
Thank you, Chair. Kia ora, Andy. Good to see you. The report talks about the communities experiencing crises and having to play a role in addressing the immediate needs of their communities. What has been the role, and what should be the role of council in those two things?
I guess each community house would tell different stories of what that crisis looks like, and therefore the role of council can change depending on what that individual family presentation looks like. There's a history of relationship with the community houses and council, so things like our City Safe team have been involved in supporting people to make connections. Our community social development team have helped with agency connections, or the network of community houses themselves are fairly mature in kind of knowing where to go, but we can sometimes assist with that. If we look at some of the other things that can be presented to community houses that are on our parks, our parks teams, fix up with broken glass and graffiti removal happens. And so there's elements of different parts of council. I know our animal control team have been involved in both education and response with our community houses around some of our, managements of dogs. And so it's quite a varied answer.
Approach
but
to, I think that's probably the answer.
Yeah,
that
everyone's kind of got a part to play at different times. Yeah.
And so, just on from that, wondering about how we provide equitable support to our communities. As we've heard yesterday, we heard there's some recurring themes in what each of our community houses face, and there's some real urgent needs there as well. How do we respond in an equitable way according to the needs of the community houses?
I can't speak for every single part of council, but I'm very aware that the Community Social Development team are proactive in their relationship. So it's not a sit back and wait till we hear from you and then, can we fix? So we are proactive in trying to address some of that, because we are aware that some of our communities won't speak up until the questions are asked directly and specifically. So that's one way in which we do that. The other part is the conversation that Lance referred to in terms of thinking about the way that we look at our city and we look at with that equitable lens, so that we're not leaving parts of our community significantly behind.
Yeah. And probably just the last question, Mr. Chair, and I'm not sure if this should be asked here or in Calvin's report. There's a note there about the community houses being connected in, or as I saw as emergency centres, and so that's.
It's okay.
So
just more information about
I guess historically, Civil Defence Emergency Management has looked at where would be the best locations for physical spaces to be community-led centres or civil defence-led centres, and our community houses, because of the extensive relationships with their communities, have presented themselves as obvious situations that people in an emergency would turn to for help, and therefore the relationship is one of how do we strengthen from a emergency management, so it's not just the houses doing the work themselves, but they've got the support of government.
Thank you. Thank
Great.
you, Andy.
Thanks, Te Pora. Mangai, so the question order I've got so far is Mangai Ollie, Councillor Dave, Councillor Martin and Councillor Kesh. So Mangai Ollie.
Thanks, Chair Mark. Kia ora, Andy, thanks for your report. And in your opening preamble, you talked about community houses supplying responses or support capacity for the needs of communities across a range of questions and areas of support. How is that capacity meeting the needs of the various communities? Is it sufficient?
So I think from our managers who have spoken this morning have articulated that each house is at a slightly different position and place, and in terms of even if I think about the longevity of our managers, there's always some trying times if leadership changes, and so some of our community houses in those times of transition are focused on making sure that the house is right so that they can step out and reach need. I think everyone would speak really clearly that Kaivolution and the free stores are showing that there's a growing need for people in terms of food security. I think the work of Craig as an advocate and would show that there's an immense need for people to access the system in a way that brings better results for them individually. Are we meeting all that need? I think the houses could all grow significantly and before the need was eradicated.
Thanks, Ollie. Yeah. You all right? Done. Councillor Dave.
Thanks. Andy, just a bit of an intro to my question. Thinking about the community house type facilities, community centre facilities, I note that Enderley, Te Papanui, used to be a rugby club originally. That's what it was built as, so I'm not surprised with the issues there. The Puketi used to be a small independent indoor recreation centre. That's what it designed as. Glenview was a local town hall. Te Whare Kokonga in Melville, and Fairfield, Te Whare o Te Ata in Fairfield, and Waimarie Community House in Hamilton East were all residential houses. That's what they were built as. And the last full community centre that this council funded was a Western Community Centre about 16 years ago that I'm aware of. Do you think there's been a sort of a deficit in council's funding for purpose-built community facilities? That's question one. Question two is, what would it have cost this council to provide the facility and the staffing to do that whole job ourselves? And therefore, would we be able to work out a savings to the community I'm not asking for the figure now, I'm asking is it possible methodology-wise?
We could have a look at in terms of what that has looked like. We know over from the time that we had a capital community centre fund, we know the funding that we gave to the community to help build. We know obviously the elements of our own renewals and our own building kind of costs where houses are located in our facilities. We're aware of historically what grant sizes we've given, and so we could do some of that work. In terms of the question of what a community house has spent on all operational costs and would council have funded that, we could probably find some of that. I'm not sure if I could go back to 1979 and provide that extensive thing. So
it's possible to
within some kind of scale. It's possible to.
I think the general manager.
I'm just thinking of a way to quantify for the bean counter inclined people in the community what the benefit that the council, the whole community, gets from the work of the community centres, and the multiplier effect of our own money, perhaps.
Yeah, there's a bit of a taste of that in point 36 of the report, where the 9 community houses that are listed in the report have an operating budget of $3.7 million per annum, and our multi-year grants are 10.3% of that. So I know what you're saying, what you were talking about is pretty more extensive type of information, but I think that just gives you a bit of a flavour of the value we get for our investment in those multi-year grants, working with these wonderful groups. So I think we could extrapolate something. It'll be a little bit rough and ready, but we'd be happy to bring something back at a future date.
I'm wondering if we could have that, say, when we come to deliberations on the LTP, sure. a sheet just giving us a bit of context there like that.
Yeah, and I think just going on from Mangai Oli's questioning as well, then if you were comfortable, then it's not an exact science, but the question Oli asked Andy about is the current suite of community houses meeting the needs of the community. My view as the GM, and I've been in the job for a decade, the answer is probably no, because of a whole bunch of different reasons that we've discussed at this committee on a number of occasions. I think the discussion is what you're talking about is then where does council go in the future? What's our role and how far do we go in that role, working with other partners?
Okay.
Thanks.
You made a good point, David, and you'll be quite pleased with some of the work that's emerging in that area. Your questions answered?
Yep.
Satisfactory, thank you. Councillor Gallagher.
Just briefly before my question, something I neglected to do from yesterday is to acknowledge the governance and engagement team for their amazing work during the day to keep that going. So apologies and thank you.
Noted.
The question relates a little bit, what we've, even from yesterday and other things, is feedback. People talk about street lights, safety, streets. And so the question I have in terms of this exercise, which is related, if we look at our so-called highest deprivation areas, but if we look, for example, of, say, Norton, Crawshaw, Enderley, Fairfield, Five Crossroads, Melville, Richmond Park, Lance, through the LTP process, just remind us how we, we do this street or that street, and we put money here, obviously. How are we having the whole of area approach, which is part of that urban renewal? How are we having a whole approach? So over the next 10 years, what exactly is our plan, say, for the Enderley Five Crossroads community? Now, this partners, KO, others. So what does that mean in terms of street lighting, underground reticulation, cycleways, a potential discussion around library service centre attached to the Enderley Community Centre? So it's sort of the one-stop shop, and I think there are at least 3 or 4 areas based on the deprivation index where that would be relevant.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think a partial answer to that, I don't have the whole answer, is that we do have a number of strategies that, you know, Nick Chester and others have been working on, and obviously other parts of council too, around transportation, accessibility, mobility, those sorts of things. Maria with the open space plan and their action plans out of those types of documents. Community facilities strategy, which sort of gives overarching principles. Where we're heading is what Murray Hickey talked about in the digital area during the 10-year plan, is how do we actually put that in sort of like a spatial sort of framework with overlays when you can actually put all that over the top and then actually see where the needs are. We do that to a certain degree, but what we want to do is actually get a lot more refined around that without it becoming a big, you know, bureaucratic and expensive process. But we will be able to do that through the use of technology going forward.
Because what I'm looking at, and you know, I know before the LTP, right, because obviously LTP will be running these things, is the one-stop shop discussion where somehow, and look, I know this has happened before, we have a dedicated session on exactly what's going on in Enderley, what's going into Melville, what's going into Norton Crawshaw in terms of the line of travel, because there's, you know, we're discussing community house, then we go and discuss a library service, and then we go over to the potholes and we go over to underground reticulation cycleways. So it's just kind of the broader discussion, and I'm open-minded as to the mechanism that we do that, but I just think, you know, we for example, correctly have a CBD working group and a Hamilton East plan and a Frankton plan, and I'm just wanting to know moving forward, the Enderley plan, for example.
Yeah, well, that's food for thought, and we're open to suggestions on that. So I think as we come up to the 10-year plan, I think, you know, that's something that could be explored. I can't give you an answer off the top of my head now what, you know, the resourcing impacts would be and that sort of thing, but I think it is a valid point. That
if I can leave it to the chair to make sure there's a minute note, and because I just want, with respect,
well,
it's not, I just want to capture and have a discussion at some time of how we approach that
Most
stuff.
definitely.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we've got that now, Kesh. Of course we have. No, you're not my personal secretary by saying that's, you'll be quite pleased, like I said to Dave, with the way we're tracking with that too, so I'm glad to have you included in it. Thanks, Councillor Martin. Now, Ollie, you've come back again. No, you've gone? Okay. Great, that's awesome. Thank you very much. Councillor Kesh.
Thank you. Thanks, Andy. And most of my questions are answered, and it's good that we're all thinking along the same wavelength. In terms of the multi-year grant and the way it's set up, do you think that it would be more beneficial to have a certain portion of it ring-fenced for community houses, or a specific community house grant, instead of everyone competing with everyone?
In the conversations that we've had around how do we allocate the multi-year grant, there's definitely different lenses that we look at, and if we think about our creative sector, how do we capture that and invest well into that? Our community houses have had long-standing financial partnerships with council, and how do we keep that? I think if you ring fence, then you guarantee that money goes in, but it becomes a little bit restrictive in new opportunities potentially. If the whole grant was fully ring fenced, then you don't have the flexibility to respond to the new at the time of an application that comes through. So there's some challenges that come with that, but there's some assurance and some certainty that comes with it. So I think there's some possibilities and some positive, but there's also some ongoing repercussions potentially if you do that in terms of what other partners we're investing with.
Yeah. And are we looking at something that Dave touched on. How are these things measured? So in terms of social impact, do we have something to measure these outcomes with within council?
Through the granting process and the accountability forms, there's evaluation that touches on our community houses, giving us narrative and story of things that have occurred, as well as some things that we can reflect across. So some of that is people employed and hours of volunteerism and income and expenditure that happens. So there's some level of metrics that we're able to produce in terms of the wider social outcomes and the needle moving. It's not down to one house that produces that, so it's more of a collective thing. If we look at some of the work that Julie Clausen and the team's done around our indicators, some of those things from a community and social development perspective, we partner with, we influence with, the community houses equally partner and influence with, rather than being the direct line of outcome.
And last question. Sure. In terms of, it's been touched on a few times, infrastructure needs. So whether it be community infrastructure or things like traffic control, what is the current line of communication in terms of how does council find out about the gaps that exist?
As the simplest answer, council finds out when a group speaks up, or other parts of council become aware of an issue.
So we're not being proactive, we're just waiting for people
parts
to come
of council, in terms of our program of renewals, that's all about being proactive.
Got you.
So there's elements that is absolutely proactive, but then new bits get sparked up as well.
And also through our very proactive elected members in Mangai who are in the community all the time feeding back to us.
Thanks, Andy.
You know it. Thanks, Kesh. Councillor Ryan.
Were those proactive elected members?
Next question.
Question, if I could, Chair, through Lance, triggered by Deputy Chair Kesh, just on those social outcomes metrics. I know you'll remember, Lance, when we received the report a while ago, but we couldn't approve the metrics that Helen Paki was putting together. There was some social impact. How's that progressing in terms of giving us feedback on those outcomes and things?
So Andy alluded to that, and I'm not sure if you've had a chance to read that we had the briefing with Julie Clausen's team about how we're measuring the 5 priorities with the indicators. And then also there's some higher level wellbeing indicators, which is measured through the quality of life survey, and there was some recent Pulse results coming through, and I think Sean Hickey's putting through, I'm not sure to which committee, reasonably soon, the annual report on that, which sort of compares, well, it looks at Hamilton, looks at large metros and that sort of thing, so that's got some high-level indicators which are linked to government and Waikato plan indicators as well, so that's imminent. Some of what Helen, you were talking about with what Helen and Andy have been doing is actually feeds into that. So we're just refining that. And you've probably seen from the work that Julie Clausen's done, some of them are outcomes, some of them are pretty still output sort of based, or a mixture of the both. So I think it's a matter of refinement over the next wee while. So I hate to sound like John Mitchell in a rugby sense that this is a journey and we'll be continuing the journey. So. But just watch this space because Julie will be coming back with more of that.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. Tapora, are you back on the board? I'm back on the board. Okay. All
Triggered
right.
by all the other questions. Probably just a question for yourself, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
It's very clear that we need a whole council approach, and probably for you as well, Lance, a whole council approach to uplifting our communities so that we're not waiting to hear the squeaky wheel and then pouring the oil in there. But how do we have community consideration across all of our committees? And maybe it's something for all of our chairs to consider so that when we don't have to wait until something comes up on community committee where our people come in and say, look, we need pedestrian over here because this is happening. How do we get to that? How will that happen?
Directing to me, my opinion is that the staff are in a really good proactive space at the moment, looking for these challenges rather than waiting for the squeaky wheels to come in. I think that's pretty fair. Well, that's my observation at this point. Plus, I also think the way that that Mayor Paul has set up the community structure, there's a lot of crossover anyway, and we're constantly in each other's ears about that kind of thing. Could always be better, I agree, Dave, I saw you shaking your heads, but that's my crack at it. Do you want to have a go at that one?
Yeah, I think just going on from that, from what Chair Mark's saying is, my experience here, there's a lot more integration of the way that we work across the organisation. So, you know, we have divisional departments and all that sort of stuff, but, you know, just look at the work like Karen Saunders is doing around Peacocks, you know, and we're calling that about building a community, not just building some roads and, a subdivision and parks and community facilities are sort of an afterthought, that sort of thing. So we've got a lot of virtual ways of operating across the organisation where there's people from libraries, people from transportation, a whole bunch of different people in these working groups and that sort of thing. The one other thing I would say is we have 1,100 staff out there, so we get a lot of feedback on the ground. Like, you know, we've got Reg Pike and the playgrounds team. Reg gets a lot of feedback from people, from young folk, families and that sort of thing when they're out on site. So that does flow through as well. And one thing you always learn about a lot of our field staff, they're not afraid to put ideas and suggestions forward, especially those from the community. And Andy's team's out there working with a lot of people too. So I think we have good fingers. It can always be better. And then Natalie's team's working with online fora, all the consultation that we're doing around He Pāmanawa through the 10-year plan and a whole bunch of other things too. So I think it's about how do we get better at listening to the community and then grabbing all that in one place.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's asked and answered. And I have another question lining up. So, Depora, you...
No, I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Councillor Dave, question?
Yeah, I noticed just before that as the GM got up to speak, my name went off the list. That's a good trick. Show me how you do it, Lance.
It's all here. There's a secret button underneath. You won't see what happens to your chair.
But now that I'm back on the list, I actually wanted to put a different context on that to Porter's question, which I think is a good one. And while I appreciate all the points that Lance has made and all the good work by staff, and at the risk of putting my head in the bear's den, I believe that we lack community advocates within each geographical community that is represented by the community centres. I've seen, particularly in Christchurch, I've observed firsthand the operation of council staff who work as community agents. No, I didn't say there was a question.
Oh, okay, I was inviting you to make a question. You can save it to debate if you like.
I was giving an alternate answer to the
Thank you for your offer. I think your point's made, Dave.
Well, no. Sorry?
I'm conscious of the time. I just want to try and keep
I can give the speech again and the thing there now.
In the debate?
Yeah.
Happy with that. But I'm sorry, I'm not trying to cut you short, but I'm trying to keep this on to questions.
That's all right. I'll start again in that one.
Okay. Is there a question?
No, I didn't say there was a question.
Great. Okay, cool. Moving on. Thank you. I appreciate it. Right, moving on. No more questions. Nothing from Zoom. All right, well, I'm going to move that the report be received. Do we have a seconder? 3 seconders, so that makes... I'll go with Kesh in this case. And look, I will say in debate that listening to the community houses and the thank you for coming along and the great work you're doing. We are hearing from the ones who are really onto it. There are, as Dave's pointed out, there is a lack of advocacy around some of our community, and it's a task that we charge our staff with big time to go out and find those needs proactively. It's interesting. My mind is drawn to that. I think you've seen that cartoon, the difference between equity and equal, I think it is, where there's the little boxes and everyone's given equal boxes by this fence, and there's a little kid who's given the same amount of boxes as a large person, and Still can't see over the fence. So that's the challenge of our staff. I mean, we're hearing very different needs from our community groups. So the key is the work that you're doing, Andy, to keep us on point so that we can apply the funding and the assistance in the appropriate place. Now, there's never enough funding, we all know that, and there's always a greater need than we can provide. So rest assured that Kesh, myself and the team at Ollie and Tapora are working as creatively as you possibly can to try and find the right answers. One of those is an area that we're really discovering, that's social impact study, where there's outfits like Hoover Social and the likes who actually measure social impact in our investment. So rather than us try and get to Rob and say, Rob, we'd like a new community house, can you please give us $200,000 to $2 million? We can actually say, we want a new facility to achieve this, this, this and this is how we're going to measure it. So that actually takes a lot of the guesswork out of what we're going to do. So there's a really growing field and we're exploring that at the moment. So we're quite excited about that. I will leave it at that and ask for fellow speakers. Councillor Dave, would you like to start again?
Thank you for the second opportunity. It's very kind of you, Mr. Chair.
I think the first one you should thank me for, but go on.
And I'll cut straight to the point. I believe, and this is no reflection at all on staff who are working in the sectors, that we have the situation partly lined up the wrong way. We have our community development workers working in different sectors in a sort of societal or political sense, but not in different geographical areas. And I saw back when I first started on council where we did have that, where we got more direct input on issues like crossing on Insol Ave, for instance, that sort of stuff. In fact, one of them was a crossing on Marden Road. Actually was a big issue started, and the person we had was involved in that many years ago. We don't have that. We don't have people that have a responsibility for bringing local issues to translating them into council. We have lots of staff out in the field doing lots of different things, but there's no advocate for the Norton community, for the Te Papanui community, for the Melville community specifically, and I think we have things falling through the cracks there. And I totally support the work that our staff are doing. I just think there's a lack, on top of that, there's a lack of this local community input into council systems.
Right.
And that, I've seen that operate well in Christchurch, where they basically acted as the Riccarton or the Hallswell advocates. Even though they were council staff and had other jobs to do, they acted as that go-between and ensured that local issues came to the attention of the right parts of council.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Thanks.
Point well made, Dave. Thank you. Māngai Te Ua.
Thanks, Chair Mark. My comments are similar, argument is similar to Councillor Dave's. I think this is a good report in that it summarises in part where our communities are now through the community houses and the support they're providing to them. I think it's a really good return of investment that Council is committing to communities, looking at point 36, I think it was, of the report. I note the community house coordinators who are here today talk about being the voice for their communities. In a lot of ways, it's a hidden voice or a voice that isn't enabled to actually communicate what their needs are, apart from through the community houses. You know, I'm hearing there's a range from General Manager, there's a range of strategies and actions and policies that sit over community houses and the support we provide to communities. I'm not feeling that that is, or I think it feels as though there's coming a point in time where those need to be gripped up and you know, reviewed. I like what I hear about the spatial analysis as a means of actually identifying, you know, in a graphical way where that needs are in communities. What I'd like to see further than that, after that, is a comprehensive strategy that pulls together or coordinates, orchestrates the resources that we have to support communities, but also extending an invitation to other agencies, stakeholders out there to come and to have a coordinated approach, not a council strategy per se, but a city strategy that's inclusive of all stakeholders that can provide support here. I note a little bit of frustration. You know, I hear these good workers from Enderley Park Community Centre. You know, we've been hearing that story it's the same story, the voice we hear time and time and time again, and we haven't progressed you know, to my mind, we haven't actually progressed in those communities for a long time. So I think, you know, in summary, there's a need for us to look at this, you know, with a good degree of analysis and invite to a range of stakeholders to come together in time to develop a comprehensive strategy that supports these communities we've talked about today.
Great. Kia ora, Ollie, thank you. Councillor, I beg your pardon, Mangai Thompson-Evans.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to thank our whānau again for coming and staying throughout the paper and our kōrero. The social determinants of wellbeing are neighbourhood, built environment. It's about economic stability, education, social and community, cohesion and access to services. If we were doing well in all of those things, we'd use our community houses to keep that going. But what I've heard today and yesterday as well is that there are deficiencies in those determinants of wellbeing, which bring you to our hui yesterday and today to really talk about those. I agree with Mangai, Ollie. We've heard a number of times. But one of my rising fears is that unless there is something on the agenda, we may not hear your voices anymore. And so out of sight, out of mind is quite often what happens. We need to hear more. I am in support of the suggestion by Councillor Dave. We shouldn't be outreaching, we should be reaching into our communities. There is a string in the form of a community advocate that council, along with our partners, should be providing. Sometimes we just need a string to pull that all together. Another thing that recurred yesterday was many of our submitters talked about when they were asked, well, what can we do? Have a partnership with us. But it was very clear as well that you weren't saying only you have a partnership with us. It's actually everybody needs to come together. So just an encouragement back to our team to, if we need to be that string at the moment, I think it's happening in different parts of our communities, but we heard the call from the people yesterday, if we need to be that string to pull all the agencies together to ensure that we get wellbeing in our communities, then let's bring the partners together. Thank you, Chair.
Kia ora. Thanks, Tapora. Councillor Kesh.
Thank you. I agree with what's been said before, so I'm not going to repeat it. I've actually written here, need advocates. So it's exactly what Dave and Tapora were just talking about. I wanted to thank our community centres, our community advocates for coming in today. It's always good to hear about what's happening on the ground. And even though a few of us try to get out there as much as we can, it's always good to hear it from you as well. And it's heartening to hear how much important work is going on in the community with what little support you do get. In terms of community group bookings, food provision, youth employment, community events. There's a lot going on, and so it's good to have an update. Just in terms of bringing stakeholders together, so I have actually recently, we've touched base with Mayor Paula regarding Te Papanui and what's happening in that area. And we had a couple of meetings with different stakeholders, but there is a stronger drive to actually bring something together more formally. And is it a steering group that we developed to work towards a neighbourhood plan for Enderley? And then, we pick an area, if it works, we repeat it, we copy it throughout the city. So because we've already started with Enderley, we're engaging with different stakeholders, so where to from now, from here. So that's in motion. And you're right, we do need a plan that overlaps all the different aspects, whether it be transport, traffic, or community infrastructure, or community gardens, playgrounds, art, somewhere to bring it all together, develop a plan, and then we know what we're funding. In that sense, we also set measures so that we can actually measure where we're starting off and where we want to get to, and are we achieving it. The other thing I just want to note is Julie Clausen and the work that she's doing around priority indicators, which I've flagged as well, is to have it actually focused on different suburbs or areas, so we know what we're actually measuring in each area of the city by deprivation. And the last thing I wanted to touch on is, what is council's role? Like, this is a huge project, so where do we fit in? It's not all on council. Like Tapora said, it's a partnership. So where does central government agencies, where do they fit in? And those early conversations starting with other funders, so that we can all, we all know where the need is, we all know what needs to be done. So what is council's role, and how do we facilitate that?
Great. Thank you, Kesh. Just as an update, we will be taking a break after we've had the vote on this. I think it may have been a bit ambitious, thinking we're going to get through all the white today. I've just talked with Lance, so we will be... I'll indicate that potentially the first thing to get moved over to Monday is going to be the GM's report. Okay, so... but we'll see how we get on. Thank you. With that in mind and those broad hints thrown, Councillor Gallagher.
I think you obviously certainly want to totally endorse the observation of the previous speakers, and again, the word, the neighbourhood plan, but it's not to be a Dave McPherson coffee table book. It's actually got to have some series of actions. I obviously want to also shout out to the amazing people who run and assist in our community houses and the shoestring budgets they have, but also if you look at the incredible hard work they've done to get the alternative funding sources. But I think the point is, in terms of the current legislation, as we should be, we talked about the well-beings, and it seems to me that as part of the well-beings, we've got to be right in the middle of the neighbourhood to ensure that we're advocates. Now, not all the renewal or the work in the neighbourhood comes from a ratepayer, our funds, but clearly there's tax dollars, there's other ways, but it's got to be the partnership. I also think that it's really important, and Andy knows my views, that I really want to see, obviously, our team, obviously out there in the community, which they are, but if I can just use the example of the Western Community Centre and Neil's team with them and our staff, our two, it's just... to have our people embedded in those communities. And I'm just using one example where I think that model, as I've observed over the years, is the Western Community Centre, something to reflect on. But I'm just hoping, Mr. Chair, that we could actually, when you have your discussions, I would just like, later in the year, an endlessly deep dive where we put everything on the table, and it's probably this committee we look at, and we see exactly what we're spending, where we want to put stuff, obviously with the community, not us sort of, talking down, and with our community participants. Where is KO? Where is KO? Where is the accessible properties? Where is education facilities? Where is the need for green space? All of that. Where's the street lighting stuff? Or the neighbourhood safety stuff. So right. I just think that's the approach we should take. And I just would say, and I say this with great care and genuineness, I've been on councils where the funding for community houses was under question and under threat. It's not a given. So certainly we should never forget through our LTP process, and I'm going to shout out to the community house groups through the LTP process, as I know Jane Wood and others do very well, keep reminding us and the people around this table of how important that funding is, through the LTP. And I just want to do a huge shout out that year in, year out, they all come and just keep reminding us of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Councillor Pascoe.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And look, I just want to briefly talk about why I think this should be driven by communities rather than council staff, but I believe that we need to have staff involved there to respond to the communities. And when I look at the map on page 19, and I see on the east side of the river a huge population north of Sari Crescent, which is where the closest community house is, and absolutely no community centres except for the library in Chartwell. And there's a huge population there, and some of that population has been there for 60 years because Chartwell was developed 60 years ago. There are groups operating in those, community groups operating in those areas, like the Huntington Resident Group, the North East Community Hub, and I know that council staff do work with them, but they tend to be a little bit meek in terms of what their demands are, and so we overlook them. So when I look at that map and I see that huge gap there, the needs there might be different than they are in Enderley and they are in Norton, but there are needs there. There's a huge amount of rates being collected in that area, so there should be not an equitable but at least a fair spend of those rates, ensuring that we have got community facilities reasonably evenly spread throughout the city that meet the demand of those communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rob. Points well made. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions today. Look, I'll just wrap up to say I'm thrilled that our eyes are on this. Yes, you're right, Tapora, these have been talked about for a long time, and that's a frustration of the political system, where we come in and we all think we're the first to do something about it, and then we look back and we see these reports. You know, and I'll be interested to see, as we ask for more information, some of the old information that we've already got in there, it might just tell us the same thing, so we might be able to cut back on that a little bit. Rob, your points are well made regards there is no community house in the northeast, and it's the interesting dynamic we see up there. You mentioned Nesh, I was about to, that they are quite a mobile group, very agile and very effective up there, and maybe they are more gypsy-like, as it were, in their needs for a community house. And that, again, is on the staff to establish the needs of each of those communities. Thank you, you for coming in and laying your case out today. I hope you feel heard, and I hope you see some action sometime soon. Yes, that's pretty much all I've got to say. So look, we'll with that in mind, we will just do this by a show of hands. I move that the report be received, seconded by Councillor Kesh. Show of hands. And on Zoom. Kia ora. Thank you very much.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Great work, guys. I'll try and juxtapose so we dovetail nicely up till midday for the first half of this meeting. But let's take a break. We'll resume at 11:15. Angela there? Right. Yeah, I know. Someone brought out the cheese, and it just slows people down, doesn't it? Or they're just digesting the brilliance of all the debate that happened before. Six, seven, and do we have anyone on Zoom? Can you just, we do? Okay, well, we've got a quorum to carry on. So the way we're going to roll this, Kelvin can only be here today, so we've got the Civil Defence Emergency Management Quarterly Update, then we'll move on to accessible properties. The Library Strategic Plan Update is, we want to give that a decent amount of time, so Stephen, we may move that to Monday, we'll see how we roll. But we're really aiming for a hard and fast time of midday, so I'll stop talking and we'll roar into it. This is on item number 9, page 26. Kelvin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Mark. Morning, councillors. Mangai Tepora, Mangai Oli, tēnā korua, morena. Thank you for indulging me, Chair, by bringing this forward. It is a quarterly update report. It is for the period between September and December. The report is as it stands. It can be taken as read, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, there being no questions, there is a question. Not a problem. No worries. That's important.
The Pau Arahi, who's in that role now?
The Pau Arahi is, we still have the same two, even though he's had a change of role. I've been in contact still with Andrea at the Runanga, and Tengi's still able to be available to us.
Cool. Second question is page 31, talk about incorporating Māori engagement being incorporated into local level strategies and guidance. Can you just give a little bit more fidelity about what that means?
Certainly.
What it looks like?
We've been doing a lot of work during that period with Mangai Tepora. That was across the region at how do we actually have far better engagement and how do we, in two parts, incorporation of iwi Māori concepts into our response framework. And what does that look like, and how do we have the voice of Māori? The second is one of the lessons we learned or took away from reviewing COVID was how well joined up were we, or what was the level of disjoint, might be a better way of putting it, between the operation we were trying to run and the disjoint with iwi Māori communities. And so there was a lack of information flow, and it's challenged us to say, actually, we need to do better, and how do we actually reach out and get better connections?
Got it. Thank you. Māngai Tepora.
They're very similar questions to Māngai Oli. How is that going? So I think you talked about this is what we're doing, but how has that been going over the last quarter, and how is that going to go into the next quarter before the reporting comes back again?
For the quarter that the report relates to, I think we had a really good lot of conversation. It's probably how do we advance it from conversation to actual actionable? I think that is still an issue for ongoing development. I've tried to grasp that up in a Hamilton sense, and we're just doing our own thing, actually. So, and we were probably slightly a step ahead of many of the other parts of the region, as you'll be aware. And so it's been trying to keep some momentum there. Has not been as successful as I would have liked. But I think that is about time and passion and commitment and actually a sense of trust being built.
Yeah. So from my understanding at the regional level that filters down, I absolutely agree with the statement there that Hamilton was more advanced than our other council partners in those relationships. How is the leadership from the group down in the iwi engagement relationship, or engagement support to Hamilton City?
There is a desire to have the leadership and the support. It is probably fair comment to say it is the desire, while we have desire, that's not necessarily 100% evident how it comes through. So there's still a bit of work to be done. Well, there's a lot of work to be done in terms of strengthening relationships. It's building trust. It's actually, and I think, again, those things are going to take time. What we don't have is, if we have a disaster tomorrow, we need to be using the time today so we're not trying to build the trust and confidence partway through it while you're trying to manage a disaster.
And you're confident in the relationships built over many years and more recently with COVID that everyone else aside, Hamilton City Council will get through on those relationships and partnerships?
Look, we can do better. We can always do better. But, and I if I could be so bold as to return the question to you, as a Pouarahi for Hamilton, as to what the level of confidence is that you perhaps have at the moment about our ability to have that reach and touch.
Very, very confident. I'm just looking to our controller for Hamilton City Council that you're okay. I know that you can stand up a team and we can get going, but independently on our own, we can just power ahead.
Absolutely, that is my view, and I was, All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tapora. Right, just want to confirm with you that just referring to page 34 and 35 in particular of the of Diligent, that not too much staff time was used getting councillors Pascoe and Gallagher back out from underneath those tables. And it's good to see them both here and alive and well, so obviously all right, no, okay, I will move that the staff, that Kelvin's report be received. Seconded Councillor Ryan, thank you. Is there any debate? There being none, we'll go with a show of hands. Thanks, team. Those in favour, say aye, or put your hand up, please. Thank you, and we've seen two hands in Zoom land.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Well done. Thank you. Thanks, Kelvin. Have a good week next week. Right, now we move to accessible properties. What item is that? That is number 8 on page 21 of our diligence, please. Welcome back, Andy. Kia ora. And you have a guest.
Councillors, I'm Māori again. It's my privilege to be able to introduce to you Suzanne Tana, who is the National Tenancy Operations Manager for Accessible Properties. As you're aware, this is a 6-monthly report that Accessible Properties is presenting to Council as part of the sales conditions of our pensioner housing of a few years ago. But Suzanne would like the opportunity just to say hi and to introduce the team to our team. So, kia ora.
Thank you so much. Good morning, councillors. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here today to introduce myself and my two teammates here in Hamilton, Christy and Beverly, and to, I guess, put some faces to our space of accessible properties here since 2016, taking over the pensioner portfolio from council. And you've got the report here which outlines some of the things that we have been doing in our space. There's focus on Hamilton in the next couple of years, coming from focus in Tauranga and building up the portfolio there that we acquired from Housing New Zealand then, Kāinga Ora now. And really excited really for what we can and hopefully do with partnership with Nick for the age-friendly plan and the regional housing initiative here in Hamilton. So thank you very much for your time.
Good, thank you. Do we have any questions from councillors? Mangai Te Pora. Sorry, Dave, you... Yep, there's a list here, yep. Te Pora. Oh, look at you guys go.
It may be in here, and maybe I haven't cleaned my glasses as well, Andy, but I think it might be something even good for noting, considering the sale, that this is not in line with the RFR for Waikato Tainui.
Yeah, for that, Te Pora.
But is that something, maybe, I just note that the recommendation is approve the sale of freehold interest in the schedule, and so that I guess I'm just looking for confirmation that this
We're
doesn't...
on the accessible properties, is that the item you're on?
Yeah. Just because it's not stated on, and I'm...
Are you asking when they were sold, was there first rights of refusal?
Yeah.
On my understanding that the legal team would have looked at that very closely. So I presume, and we could check and get back to you, the answer is no.
Okay.
But
please, let's move on.
I was waiting for that. I can find out the history if you like, Te Pora, and get back to you.
Yeah.
Are you happy with that, Te Pora?
Yep. Does that have any bearing on the recommendation?
We're just receiving the report. That's the only recommendation that's up at
Sorry,
this
no.
point.
My apologies. I've skipped ahead. That's how lightning I am.
That's right,
Please
welcome back.
ignore my...
Welcome back to our pace.
Yeah.
No, that's
Put the
no,
coffee
good.
down.
Thank you. Councillor Dave.
Oh, okay, thanks. Someone dropped out in between.
I think Maxine.
Look, you've got, I'm looking at actually the very last couple of lines of your report that's attached, thank you. 157 original tenants, so I'm presuming that they are mostly aged pension people, if not all. But one of the things that we were always interested in as a council was how many superannuitants were in these, and this doesn't actually give me that figure. Neither the staff nor your report give me that figure, because while there's a rollover and more than half of the tenants are new ones, how many of them are old people? Because one of the reason we had some of those conditions in the sale, one of the reasons, not the only one, was that we wanted to ensure that the stock primarily was still available for elderly people, for superannuitants. So I can't elicit from any of these figures what proportion are elderly, regardless of whether they're original tenants or new tenants.
So you'd like to see some more information on?
Yeah,
percentage
we
of
have had that
superannuitants?
in the past, I believe, early days. So I'm just wondering if we can
How would we
know the figure right now. Because, Mr Chair, if I could just say, it was important to us that if we didn't provide, at least someone was providing subsidised housing, if you like, for old age pensioners.
Okay,
like
so
myself.
We can get those figures and distribute through to you, Councillor.
Are you happy for it just to be distributed?
Yeah,
because the next report's 6 months away.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, this is helpful. It's just we'd like that extra bit of...
And can we take a note of that to include that in the next report? I know it's a long way away, but thank you. All right, thanks, Dave. Councillor Martin.
Just in terms of the long term, obviously you're a key partner, and I notice in Hamilton, are you saying the majority of your tenants, or all of your tenants, are the older citizens?
Majority.
Yeah, but you also do some, which I think I've noted, people who have mobility issues. And,
Correct. Yep. Supported living.
So strategically moving ahead, what is the, because obviously you're one of the largest in the country, what is the sort of the medium to long term strategy in terms of potential further property acquiring or over time, the redevelopment of your existing properties?
Specifically here in Hamilton?
Yeah.
To give you a really broad sense, for us is we are looking at obviously improving supply, right, increasing supply, but at the same time, right now, identifying what the needs are. We have obviously a majority of, at the moment, obviously, for our pensioner portfolio, but identifying if we were to stay in that space, who our audience would be, what we need to have for them, because currently, even the portfolio now and who we cater for, it's not perfect. So we're still needing to have a look at what that looks like in the future. Our housing development manager will probably be a better place to actually answer that in terms of your strategic plan for...
Because obviously through the Waikato Plan, we have the housing initiative, Andy's in the middle of that. And for Metro Hamilton, which is the Greater Hamilton, is just obviously making sure that you're around that table, because you're such a significant landholder for that strategic. Is it to Andy as well? Is that a fair understanding of the partnership we will have with Accessible moving forward?
Absolutely. Accessible properties are a part of the RHI, and as alluded to by Suzanne, as we're re-looking at our age-friendly plan, they're a partner to that as well, and so it's not just a token partnership.
No,
actively working. Yeah, so.
No, because I want to acknowledge the work you're doing around disability, as I've started to observe wandering around. No, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. East Ward Councillor, Councillor Maxine Van Oost.
In the blue shirt.
It's a blue shirt.
Thank you, and thanks for your report. And pleasing to note that you have an increase in tenants who identify as very happy, and it's likely to do with the work that you've done through the lockdown. 158 respondents. Do you have any stats on what percentage of those were the ones that have been handed on from Hamilton City Council?
As part of that 158?
Yeah.
We'll have to, I can do some digging in that space.
Yeah. It'd be nice to be able to understand their level of satisfaction as well. And thank you to Councillor Gallagher for asking questions with regard to accessibility. And I understand that you have a program of renewal and renovation. At what stage will the Hamilton units be recognised for that renewal, and will those accessibility factors be taken into account at that point?
Thank you. At this point in time, Healthy Homes upgrades are taking priority in that space. We have mapped out over 200 properties from now till June getting their upgrades, and obviously we are committed to ensuring all our properties across the country is up to Healthy Home standard by 2023. So at this point in time, there is a major program of works in that space. And through that, my understanding is that contractors are scoping. As they go in, we are ensuring that they also scope for other needs. So through that, we are getting feedback on some of the upgrades required through maintenance programs, preventative programs that will feed into that preventative programs as opposed to the health and Healthy Homes program, and a continuous work obviously through the engagement between tenancy manager and tenants as to what their needs might be, because it could be a case by case, and often is case by case in terms of improvements.
And in terms of that, if a tenant was approved funding through a different source, they could work with you easily in order to be able to meet their mobility or other needs.
Absolutely, that's preferred. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Max.
Thanks very much.
Kia ora, good questions. All right, well, there'll be no more questions. I'm happy to move that the report be received. Do I have a seconder? Anyway, Councillor Maxine, thank you. I'll reserve debate if need to, but I don't see any reason to debate it. But if anyone has anything to say. Nope. Okay. Show of hands that we received the report. And on Zoom. Yep, great.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Awesome. Okay. Now, with deepest apologies to Stephen Penrusco, I think the libraries item, I'd like to give it more than 21 minutes because I know that you're doing some fantastic work and I'd really want to give you some latitude on Monday. It's also a great enticement for people to come back on Monday because this is a really cool item. But we do have time before midday to potentially sneak in item 10, the domain endowment lease freeholding. So this one is all about approving a sale of a property that's in freehold interest and domain endowment fund, but I'll let you explain that in case people haven't quite got into the detail of the report. Welcome.
Good morning.
Sorry?
People know Claire?
Sorry, yeah, do people know Claire?
I don't know.
Perhaps you'd like to introduce Claire for us?
So Claire's from the strategic property team, Claire Foster, and she does quite a bit of the work around endowment fund and other parks matters too, so.
Yeah, so this is just to seek recommendation to council to approve the sale of the domain endowment land. It is not the house on top, it's literally just a ground lease at the moment. They have 21-year perpetual leases and the policy allows for the leaseholder to freehold at any time. So we've received an application from the current leaseholder and this is the process. We've did market value with the registered valuer and they've agreed to the price and this is just seeking approval to sell them the land.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from Councillor Forsyth on Zoom. Margaret?
Thank you, Chair. Just one question around arriving at the price. So I see that the recommendation is for the price of not less than $4.35, including GST, but we all know in these times that properties are selling at quite a different price to their current valuations, so the market's driving rather than what valuers say what the property is worth. So how can we ensure that the best market price will be received for this property?
Well, when the application is received from the leaseholder, we engage with a registered valuer and they go out and do a full report of the site and they gather evidence of sales at that time. So this would have been done probably about two months ago. So they would have been seeking the market value at that time and using evidence of other sales at that time to come up with that value. So it's not the same as going out to auction and having someone bid because it's literally the person living in the house on the land who is applying to buy the land. So it is a market value at the time of seeking the valuation.
So Councillor Margaret, that's
market value, because market value means you put it to the market. A valuation is quite different. I mean, I can have a property that's been valued, but then when I put it to market, I may very well have an offer that's considerably more. So how can we make sure that we're getting
the best bang
the
for
best market value, not valuer's value, for this property? And you're telling me that we can't, is that correct?
I'll let Lance have a go at this one.
So Margaret, this Claire and the team have followed our policy, which is there's a link in the item. So you're right in what you're saying that it's a bit of a catch-22. You can't go to the market under our policy because it talks about a current market valuation that we use. If you go to the market, because we can't sell it to anyone else because under the auspices of the endowment policy and the agreement with these people, it would be a little bit odd if we were going to go and test the market and disingenuous or getting people to bid for it to find out what the market value is. So you do that through a market valuation through valuers.
I think perhaps, Margaret, if I can add in here.
I understand how valuers work. That's the point I'm trying to make is that, okay, it sounds like we've got a forward policy, but we have an asset, we want to sell it, but we actually can't sell it at its full price. We're locked in selling it at a valuer's market value, which we all know is quite different to what a real price of an asset is. So, look, if we're locked into that policy and it seems to me to actually fall short, then so be it. But I make my point. Thanks.
So, yeah, so Margaret's asking, is there scope to have another look at that policy, I think, so we can be a bit more nimble. Is that where you're, I'm just trying to clarify what Margaret's asking. Is that right, Margaret?
Oh, sorry, what did you say?
Your question's around the policy and is it nimble enough, basically? Is that right?
Yeah. We're hamstrung by the inadequacy of the policy, obviously. Yeah.
Okay. All right, I think are you happy with, well, probably not happy with the answer, but do you feel it's been answered? Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Margaret. Margaret Tapora?
Thank you, Chair. I'll return to my earlier question. I did wonder why Andy was looking at me very bizarre for what I was asking.
It's just a look.
But I will ask the question again, is this property subject to right of first refusal?
My understanding is no, it's not. Well, my understanding is the land was used for endowment purposes, which was to generate revenue for the council, and the funds go to the Domain Endowment Fund, and which is used for investment into reserves. So I don't believe it's part of the.
Are we able to get confirmation of that?
We can check the legislation. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Would that have any bearing on if it is found to be an RFR? I mean, I think the easy way to have answered that would have been to have had that stated in the report, because there's just no guidance on that inside the report.
The answer is yes. It'll be useful to have that in future reports. To resolve this today, if you wanted to have a safeguard, then I would put in a D, subject to the land not being covered by the first rights of refusal.
Thank you.
Would you like that put in, Tapora? I'm happy to throw that into the motion if you want to second it, or you throw that in as a D?
Sorry?
Well, shall we throw that in as a D? I'm happy to move that if that's the case.
Yes.
Yep. All right. If you could work on the wording of that, please. Thank you. In the meantime, Councillor Dave.
Yeah, look, I certainly don't want to reflect on the staff's work on getting market price 2 months ago. I happen to have been looking for totally different reasons at properties in Hamilton, and the amount that they're being sold for, actually being sold for, above rateable value in the last month, or less, just under a month. And the land value here, which is the bit that effectively is being sold, the land rather than the improvements, is $400,000. That's listed in our database now, and the extra 65 is curtilage, improved fences and whatnot around it, not the house itself, which obviously the leaseholder owns, in inverted commas, at the moment. The properties of that value, with that sort of land value, are going at the moment for around 125 to 200,000 above the market value, and that's almost all because of land. You can see when you're doing the comparisons. So my question is a 2 month out of date, is a 2 month ago valuation out of date given the current market conditions? If I were a leaseholder in this place, I would be looking for a quick sale at 435,000, because I would immediately get a value uplift of at least 100,000. The place is being potentially valued, I've just seen online, at 650,000.
The whole place?
Yeah, the whole lot, that's the whole lot. Or another one between 620 to 685. I'd say the land is a very large part of that.
So you're asking a similar question to Margaret's.
435,000, and I don't think we can accept that valuation at the moment. And it's not that staff have done it wrong. 2 months ago, quite likely to have been right, but we're not 2 months ago.
Lance, I'll get you to reflect on that.
Well, I might get Claire to talk about that because I think it's about how you get the most up-to-date valuation. And I think what you're saying is the market's moving pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I just know the challenge with getting registered valuers to do work quickly.
It's very hard.
Is with a item we got in PX on Monday, I can talk about that because everyone's found that a bit challenging. But Wendy might be able to help with that too.
It's Claire, by the way.
Wendy's behind you.
No, I think
Wendy, come on up to the table.
we're also driven by meeting deadlines too.
Yeah.
So we do all this work, which takes a couple of months to engage with the valuer. It takes them about a month to get the report back to us. So it's, because they're obviously doing other work, so it's not like they do it a month ago and then they give us the report. They do it pretty much within a couple of days. And then we, in a negotiation period, because sometimes they're disputed, and they are allowed to go and get their own independent valuation. In this case, they didn't dispute it, they accepted it.
Yeah.
So if I'd actually got accepted and then come to you the next day, it would have been a current market value. And I was meant to take this to, going to take this to the Economic Development Committee. It got pushed out to the Community Committee, so that added another month on. So that's part of the reason why it appears to be very much out of date when it technically isn't.
So in response to that, I can totally understand staff's position and what Lance said. How can we possibly sell it for 435, having heard about the delays, knowing what the market's roughly doing at the moment?
Yeah, it's a matter of timing it so that the. You sure?
We're not saying we're going to sell it at 435. We're saying the minimum we would receive for it is 435. So the market might, once this goes to tender, it could go upwards of 500,000.
It's not going to tender.
Not going to tender.
It's not going to tender. This is the price.
So that is the price?
Yes.
So why does it say a minimum?
But not less than 435.
Well, it's not less than.
That's the technical wording we always use. That's what the price would be if we went back to them, unless there was a GST component.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
financially,
do, at risk of sort of turning into a sort of three-way discussion, four-way discussion here, I do have a little bit of a problem with the wording of that in that case.
Okay.
Because if you're saying we're selling it for that, that's where that argument comes from. If you're saying you're selling it for a minimum, then I think a lot of us will be happier.
Absolutely, change the wording, yes.
Right, so
Let's make it, if it's not clear enough, absolutely. But it is 435.
Look,
agreed
there's another possible help that we could get a real estate agent to do an appraisal, which is not a registered valuation, but they're pretty experienced, get one that works in that area with that type of housing, do an appraisal for us, openly, transparent, to tell the leasehold owner as well what that is, and see if we're on the right track or we're way out of kilter.
I think that takes us away from that policy.
If it's close, then it's not much difference. But if we're 100,000 out...
Yeah, I hear you. What that does is it takes us away from our policy, though, which says it's got to be based on a registered valuation.
Yeah,
so
but the registered valuers base their price on market prices. The market has moved since staff were able to get their figure. They did totally the right thing at that time, but we've had a delay.
What would be the implications if we were to defer this and bring back that more current and valuation as close to that meeting time as we could? Now, our next meeting is 6 weeks away. Could you do it by Monday?
An appraisal you could, probably.
That would potentially change the number.
It would just let us know whether we're barking up the wrong tree or no, go for it.
There's also implications with the person that you're dealing with, so can you guys elaborate on that, what the expectations of these people are in the process? Because also I just noticed under the policy that if there's disagreement, we go to arbitration, and if we go to arbitration, that's going to cost everyone a lot of money.
Yeah, well, but we don't.
No, that's all right. No, it was timely, Margaret.
We don't bring a report to you until we have actually agreed on a price, which, as I say, the policy allows them to dispute when we do the registered valuation up front. We send them that information and they either agree or disagree to it. That's when we do all the negotiation. And like I said, we've had ones in the past where they've disputed and we've had to do, backwards and forwards, and they've got their own valuers, and they've had the two valuers have got together and had a chat. So this one was straightforward. I think at first he was disputed, but then I think he checked the market himself and realised that it was on the nose. It was pretty much close, and that's what I'm saying. The valuers provide us with other evidence of sale prices, land prices at the time.
I don't think anyone's disputing that, but I
Yeah.
think that's the timing and the
And that's the timing
rapidity
between
of the
us
market.
coming to you to get this approved. And I completely understand what you're saying.
Yeah, rock hard place.
Yeah.
I need a bit of help with this one.
So what's the implications of if we go away and get either an appraisal or evaluation and go back to them and say it's...
Oh, in good faith, we've already done that negotiation, so we're basically renegotiating.
Yeah.
So
But the option
it's
of
not a
this, the only option
recommendation.
that would leave us is to vote it down, and then where does
Again.
that leave you?
I mean, you could have a conditional sale that allowed for a valuation as soon as in the future as you're able to do it and reach agreement, and then have a negotiation over the difference, which probably wouldn't be the whole lot. You could say, well, it's yours subject to a future valuation determining the amount and then negotiation or something like that. But I mean, what staff are proposing to us is how to give $100,000 to the owners. It's not their fault that anyone's...
No. We're assuming that is, I see you've got some evidence there, but we're assuming that is the difference. But yeah, what's their way through this?
So if this is not approved, Wendy, what actually happens then?
So if I may,
Please.
Mr Chair, Committee, the problem is we've acted in good faith and negotiated with this particular party. The delay in it coming to this committee is not his fault, and there could be repercussions of, the realisation is it was going to the Economic Development Committee, then it got moved to this particular committee, so that is not a fault of his. He's acted in good faith, as we have. To go back would show a lack of good faith in respect to the negotiations. And if I just may also add, through you, Mr Chair, to Maanga Te Pora, there is no right of refusal in respect of this particular piece of land under the Hamilton Domain Endowment Act. It's not subject to RFP.
Could we defer it to...
Certainly may.
Yeah,
this is only a recommendation to council, don't forget. That could
Yes,
still...
it is.
And I don't know when the council meeting is that it's going to deal with this, so it's not a sale today anyway.
And it's the end of April.
End of April.
Yeah.
So that gives us plenty of time in
That's
between to get that appraisal.
I think I'd like to see the whole matter, and I might move as procedural, whole matter be referred to the council meeting of such a date, which is when it would go there anyway.
So you're moving a procedural motion?
Yeah, and that staff endeavour to find more information in relation to the valuation.
Okay, Dave's moved a procedural motion. Do we have a seconder?
Before we second that, can't we just move that as a motion rather than making it procedural?
Oh, I don't mind, sorry.
So you have to all shut up.
Forget the word procedural.
Okay, so I didn't hear procedural. What was that you were suggesting, Ryan? Can we have Mike?
Appraisal or something in time for the council meeting so that it's sort of what you're after.
But if we pass this, that again puts, as well as that, if we actually pass the resolution, that's again an expectation on the part of the owner.
No, we could drop the staff recommendations out and just say, subject to a further approval, and then they could add those recommendations in at that council meeting.
Yeah.
Yep, I'd be happy with that.
That's what I'm sort of...
Can I say, my advice would be that we will bring back what the legal risks are around this as well. Because, you know, just hearing what Wendy said around good faith negotiations, and if there's been a slow part at our end.
But if we word it right, there's been no deferral because it's going to be delayed until council anyway.
And Lance, that would need to be the implications in relation to delegations as well, because this motion delegates authority to the chief executive. I'm not aware that that staff have the right to agree on a price until it comes finally back to us. They have a right to agree on a process and to talk about what prices might be, but not to give something that'll tie us and put us in legal jeopardy.
Yeah, I get that. So I think we need to explore all that and bring back that information.
Yeah, we don't have a motion yet anyway, so that would be the motion.
Technically you do because you haven't withdrawn.
I haven't moved it. Did I move it? Gosh darn it. Okay, so that means that this will be an amendment that we'll be putting up here, because I'll withdraw my motion actually. Without, because I don't have a second.
I'll second yours.
Oh, Te-Pora, would you consider us withdrawing our motion and replacing it with what Dave and Ryan are suggesting? Because that would give us time to throw in what you're after as well.
Yeah, that makes.
Yeah, okay, so we will withdraw our motion, so that becomes the substantive motion. Can we see it, please? Certainly, thanks to you, and I appreciate your indulgence, mate.
Cool, see you then.
Yeah. It's after 1, we'll be there until 1:45. Ewan's walking.
Right, Ryan, can you have a good look at that, please?
She was going to give you a ride.
Request.
Yeah, I think that's fine, and staff can bring forward the relevant recommendations to approve it on the day, subject to
And
those things being met.
Appraisal and legal advice, I think, is the point that.
Yeah, and the legalities and legal implications of this.
C.
An updated appraisal, yeah.
So requested staff undertake an update, or
Rather
requested
approve-
staff
just
update the appraisal?
That the community committee refer the matter, not approves the matter, whatever, it's a tortuous English.
We approve that the matter be referred to, yeah. Margaret, your hand's still up. Was there a question, or is it old hand?
And C, legal.
Sorry, if I figure another question.
Okay. Bearing in mind we're trying to, not trying to.
It was just around the valuer, the registered valuer. So, point 10, the land's being valued at 435 by a registered valuer. All registered valuers come back with the same result, the same price.
Sorry, Margaret, we
What's the question?
we got a bit distracted by typing on the screen, but what was your question again, please, to staff?
In their experience, do all registered valuers come up with the same price?
Like one valuer compared to another valuer compared to another valuer?
So if I went to Telfer Young or I went to Blue Wallace and I asked for a registered valuation, in your experience, would those valuations be the same?
In some cases, they're close. In some cases, they can be very far apart. So that's why we have the dispute clause where we can negotiate.
So why do we only go to one registered valuer?
Well, we go to one registered valuer and we have one price, and they can dispute it. We don't need to go to more than one valuer because that would cost probably a lot of money for us to keep going to lots of valuers for different prices.
Well, I'm not suggesting we go to lots. And what does a lot of money mean?
Average report is around $2,500, which the applicant has to pay for.
Okay.
What's the applicant has to pay for?
Yeah, they pay for all costs relating to selling this property.
Right.
legal costs and valuation costs.
Okay, so it
all
brings up
that
the good
lot,
faith, doesn't it?
And good
Yeah.
faith, yep.
Okay. All right, so we have certainly want to give this due time, but I'm also under pressure. Councillor Gallagher, do you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're going to confirm, Lance, that part of this may be a pink page item at full council because obviously we'll receive relevant legal advice particularly around the good faith provision. And obviously then when the final decision is released, but obviously I think there may be some issues of legal process for council. And then obviously the other thing I'd look for is can we have a better mechanism of given the current state of market, of a more fast-track process, it's waiting for community committee, it's waiting for economic development, it's waiting, maybe it gets council, because it seems to me the sooner those negotiations in good faith are concluded to be presented, then they need to go off to governance as quickly as possible so that we don't have the time lag. And I totally get, council not sort of inadvertently transferring a public value across, for significant private benefit, hypothetically making $100,000 overnight. I'm not implying that in this case, but it's just a matter of joining up the dots and having a rapid, a rapid process.
Thanks,
so
Mark.
that a fair price for the city is realised, along with the purchaser.
Right. Thank you, Martin. No, point noted. And nodding ensued.
Without labouring my point, Mr Chair, just clarification around C, request legal advice on potential risks to council prior to the meeting?
To the council meeting.
Council prior to the meeting. Okay, yep, that's been changed.
Great.
It's from what it was, thank you.
Awesome. Keen eyes.
Keen eyes.
So, Tapora, you're seconding this one? Ryan,
I am.
You are seconding this one?
I am, if that's okay.
That's fine. Are you happy with that, Ryan? Yep. Thank you for your work on it, guys. Okay, I'm sorry, it's it's not been as easy as we perhaps thought it might be, but valid points have been raised and that's our job to do. So, look, we'll put that motion. Councillor McPherson, do you wish to debate it?
Just to say that I am a little perturbed, and I realise this has come up before, so I'm certainly not blaming staff for it. I think our tradition and practice has gone a bit out of kilter with our expectations. Whenever there's an issue, we should not be in a position at a committee meeting to be told, but we've negotiated with an outside party in good faith, and this is their expectation of the price, unless we've given our staff the delegated authority to make the decision, which we clearly haven't. They have to bring it back here, so what they bring back should be open, potentially, to change. So that's on the process. It's, but I would totally recognise that staff are only doing what they've done before, and we've let it go through. Yeah. Now we realise maybe that's not such a good thing. Thank you.
You make a good point, Dave. Thank you. Councillor Ryan.
Thanks. Yeah, I hear Councillor Dave's point. To be fair to staff, they have followed the policy, so that's something for us to look at if we've got an issue with that. I don't want to unduly hold this up. I want to cash out, and the money can be used for enhancing public amenity around the domain and reserves. So I'm not keen to hold this up, but I think in terms of what we've requested, it doesn't necessarily defer it. We've still got a good faith in progress because it wasn't going to be approved before that date anyway. And hopefully this will satisfy the concerns around, a fair market updated price.
Thanks, Ryan. Well spoken. Councillor Jeff, for you or Deputy Mayor? Okay. No, that's absolutely fine. Okay. Well, I won't speak either. So I hope we've given this due time. Thank you for that. I think we came to an ugly but satisfactory conclusion. So no other reply, Dave. Great. Thank you. Okay, so we'll vote on those in bulk. The motion is the Community Committee A, B and C. Can I do that? We'll do that by show of hands, please, around the room and on Zoom. Thank you, Margaret. You raised some good points there.
Motion is carried unanimously.
All right, so we will now adjourn this meeting until Monday, and I understand we do have you, Dave, do we, on Monday? Which is good. So, thanks, guys. We don't have you, but we've got Dave. Okay. Thank you, staff. Thanks, Margaret. Good to see you. Cheers.